Welcome back, and let's wrap up these Slay the Spire 2 breakdowns with the final returning character, the Ironclad. Once again, I'll be breaking down these cards into two main categories, returning cards from the original game, and then new cards that will be featured in Slay the Spire 2. First, for the cards that we've fully seen so far, we have Uppercut, Blood for Blood, Shrug It Off, Iron Wave, Body Slam, Anger, Bash, Headbutt, Bludgeon, and Hemokinesis. And as for Bludgeon, it's actually moving from a rare card down to an uncommon, and Hemokinesis is remaining as an uncommon, but it did get ticked a little bit on the damage. It's going from 15 to 14 for whatever reason. It seemed like it was already balanced if you ask me, but maybe there's justification for the 1 damage. And then we have 6 cards that we haven't fully seen the description of, but they are in the original game, so it's likely they are not having any changes. Those are the following of Feel No Pain, Burning Pact, True Grit, Bloodletting, Rampage, and Dark Embrace. Dark Embrace surprisingly moving back to a rare card, which was its original rarity in the original game. I guess they decided uncommon was a little too frequent and there may be more exhaust synergies, so now it's back up to a rare. And now for all the new cards coming to the Ironclad in Slay the Spire 2. First off, in the common category, we have a 2-cost skill called Blood Wall, which is lose 2 HP and gain 15 block. Next is another skill, which is Tremble for 0 energy, where you will apply 3 vulnerability and exhaust. And we have a 1-cost attack called Breakthrough, where you lose 1 HP and deal 10 damage to all enemies. And then you have this 2-cost attack called Cinder, where you deal 15 damage and exhaust the 2 top cards in your draw pile. But think about a Havoc X2. I don't know if I like this card, but in a pinch, 15 damage for 2 energy also isn't super enticing unless I have some exhaust synergies. And if you haven't noticed yet, we already have 2 additional cards where you're losing HP along with doing some other action, so it seems like we're going to be leaning into maybe that type of build potentially with the Ironclad. Now for the uncommons, we have a 0-cost attack called Spite. It is deal 6 damage, and if you lose HP this turn, you draw 1 card. We have Howl from Beyond, which is a 3-cost attack. It is deal 16 damage to all enemies at the start of your turn. It also has a mention here that it plays from the exhaust pile. I'm not really sure what that means, if you only can play it from the exhaust pile or how that works, but it is in a very peculiar wording. And we have a 0-cost attack called Bully, where you deal 4 damage, and then you will deal 2 additional damage for each vulnerability on the enemy. What that means is if there's 5 turns of vulnerability, you're going to do an additional 10 damage on top of the 4. Seems pretty strong if you can apply that. And lastly, we have a 2-cost attack, Unrelenting, where you'll deal 12 damage and your next attack you play costs 0. And we have 1 power, Stone Armor for 1 energy, where you gain 5 plating and lose 1 dexterity. And on to our rare cards. Up first, a 1-cost power, Cruelty, where vulnerable enemies will take an additional 25 damage, but you are going to lose 1 energy. Another 1-cost power, Aggression, where at the start of your turn, put a random attack from your discard pile into your hand and upgrade it. That, however, sounds insane for 1 energy. And then lastly for the powers, we have a 3-cost, which is called Hellraiser, where whenever you draw a card containing Strike, it is played against a random enemy. We have a 0-cost attack called Pax End, where it can only be played if you have 3 or more cards in your exhaust pile. Deal 17 damage to all enemies in that case. I know what you're thinking. It seems pretty easy to play, and you're right. But if you draw at your first hand, it is immediately a brick unless you have great exhaust. So it kind of feels like Grand Finale, but at least a more playable version of Grand Finale. And we have a 1-cost skill, which is Colossal, where you gain 3 block and you receive 50% less damage from vulnerable enemies this turn. So as you can see, more gameplay around the actual debuff of vulnerability within Ironclad in Slay the Spire 2 than what we had in the original game. And lastly, these are the unconfirmed cards that are also going to be brand new to the Ironclad in Slay the Spire 2. Up first, we have a 0-cost attack, which is rare, called Charge. An uncommon 0-cost skill, Forgotten Ritual, a common 1-cost attack card, Set Up Strike, and an uncommon 1-cost attack, Ashen Strike. But that is it. That's everything we know about the Ironclad so far for Slay the Spire 2. Obviously, if more information does come out in the next 2 or 3 months, I'll be sure to try to cover that. But I think for now, we mostly got it covered, and it's now just wait and see until March. Of course, I've mentioned it before, there is a little bit of a tease of something coming out in February, so maybe our guy Defect comes back of some sort. Now, maybe I'm on the maximum copium, but if not, we'll survive. As I've mentioned before, if you want to see more of me, you can find me on Twitch 5 days a week, Thursday through Monday. I'll be streaming Slay the Spire, and of course, I'll be streaming Slay the Spire 2 when it does drop. But until next time, thanks for coming by.